Good evening, everyone, and happy Halloween. Welcome to the Hamilton Report. Boy, do we have a lot to do on this Halloween night. So while you're passing out candy to trick-or-treaters or enjoying chili or whatever your custom is tonight, I'm glad that you're here because we are going to literally take the masks off of some of the worst GOP boogeymen that they've ever created. We'll do that one at a time, and I'm going to need your help in this conversation. I'm glad you're with us. All that and more on tonight's Hamilton Report. Well, as I said, it's Halloween, but frankly, it wouldn't matter if Election Day fell in the middle of the summer. It would still be a scary time because of all of the boogeymen that the Republican Party sends out around elections. And we're not talking about normal little scare tactics. We're talking about major issues that are being floated that aren't major issues at all. In fact, some of them are not even issues, much less major ones. We're going to be taking a look at that tonight because I think you'll agree that while the Democrats in Oklahoma, we have truly worked for the last 2 years in meeting with potential candidates, recruiting them to run for office, supporting them in their efforts to serve the people of Oklahoma. And what they have done is they have given us a profound sense of hope. We are turning out people to the polls to vote with a sense of hope. But that's not the case on the other side of the ticket. The Republicans are building one boogeyman after another to scare people to the polls. You know, for so long, they have absolutely demonized Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And they are still demonizing her, and they are still taking no responsibility for what happened to her husband on Friday. That is devastating for a number of reasons. One, because it was an assassination attempt. They went in looking for the speaker, and the guy evidently told police that when he found her, he was going to question her, and if at any point she lied, he would break her knees so that she would have to roll in to the house as a warning for other Democrats. This is not playtime. This is a very scary time when one of our highest elected officials in this country, the third person from the presidency, could have their family treated this way. Now, it's also very interesting how since then, a lot of the super right fringe groups that have absolutely no sense of right and wrong are inflating this or conflating this with something that just did not happen. The rumor mills are abounding over Mr. Pelosi, YouTube videos, tweets on the now insufferable Twitter, all claiming things that are not true. And it's a shame that they can't just rely on the truth here. But yesterday, during the news programs, the Sunday news programs, it was one Republican after another saying, well, this was a terrible situation, but how about when Antifa and Black Lives Matter was burning down America? You see that pivot there? That's to make it a scary thing, because Black Lives Matter, the people who are opposed to fascism in our country, they're the ones who supposedly are the bad guys here, burning down America. Do you know, in all of the events following the death of George Floyd, there was very, very little violence. But that's not the way that they portrayed it. And speaking of crime, now, it's fascinating to me that Law and Order Party, which is supposed to be the GOP, is screaming and yelling about crime in our nation. Interestingly, they were not screaming and yelling during the last administration when crime really started to move forward. And worse, hate crimes increased many-fold. Crimes against women, against gay men and lesbians, against transgender individuals, against people based on their race, against people based on their age. And the list goes on. This is a party that is enabling violence, and yet they're screaming that we live in a lawless society where crime is running rampant. You know, it's interesting because Stitt tried that in the debate and was roundly ridiculed, not just by Oklahoma papers, not just by papers in the United States, but in Europe as well, showing him the proof that Oklahoma is, compared to major places like New York and California, a dangerous city. We know that. We live here in Oklahoma. And yet he's pretending that that's a non-issue, claiming that crime and punishment is all about Democrats, or rather crime, and he wants to do the punishing. You see, when we create a figure, a criminal, who do we use? Dark figures in shadow, and almost always people of color. This demonizing of individuals has got to stop. But that's something that they're doing quite well, I must say. And now let's look at another of the boogeymen, and that's just simply the word liberal. If you have ever heard Joy Hoffmeister speak, if you have ever seen her in a rally or in an interview, she will tell you immediately that she is a moderate. That's the way that she runs her life. That's the way she intends to serve Oklahoma as governor. She's a moderate. But the new attack ads, and some of them are just vile, call her an extreme liberal force. Now, come on. It takes you 2 minutes to listen to this lady and know that she is not an extreme liberal in anything. But that's another lie. It's that the liberals are coming to get us. The liberals are going to take over our nation. Well, consider the alternative. And the alternative looks something like this, because while this focuses specifically on Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think you'll understand that this applies to everyone who is running for office on the GOP side. They have promised us exactly what they will do. They have promised us that they will take away Social Security, take away Medicare, and I thought I had a clip loaded, and I'm sorry I don't, but I will just tell you it's called Marge in Charge. And here we go. I just found it here. Take a look at this from our friends at the Lincoln Project.
Meet the new boss, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's the most powerful Republican in Washington. She's not conservative. She's radical. QAnon conspiracies, anti-Semitic, the craziest lady I ever seen. Old Kevin McCarthy used to have the power, but now he's impotent, weak. Marge sets the agenda. She'll drive the Republican majority. Large Marge. She just that scary. Craziest lady I ever seen. And if you vote Republicans, you're voting for her. So tell them Large Marge sent ya.
Gotta love our friends at the Lincoln Project for calling it exactly what it is. If we allow people like that, and now she's evidently in talks with the former failed president, the twice impeached failed president, to be his running mate in 2024. Can you imagine anything more horrific? Like I said, they've told us what they would do. They would take away our rights one by one. They would deny elections that they didn't win. They're telling us this now. And like Maya Angelou told us, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. And that's what we've got to do. Let's talk about another one of the boogeymen. This is one that Ryan Walters is so fond of, and that's CRT. Now, most of us know that critical race theory is a very small course taught in graduate school. And it does not even have a great airing in most graduate schools. It's a niche class. Fascinating once you start to read it. But it is not and has not been taught in our public schools in Oklahoma or anywhere else. But because of the draconian laws that our legislature has put into place, they keep rattling out CRT. Ryan Walters says, if I'm superintendent of public education, I'll make sure that CRT is never taught in our schools. Hey, buddy, it's not taught now. And if you wrote the curriculum as you say you have done, then you would know that. So it's another lie. It's another boogeyman that they're pushing out there to scare people. And when he says it, his supporters say things like, absolutely, I don't want that stuff taught in my kid's classroom. But it's hindering the teaching of American history, our history. And sometimes history doesn't make us feel very good. And that's the point of reading it, learning about it, and understanding it, so that we don't keep making the same mistakes as individuals or as a society. But CRT, that's the thing that are going to make people rush out and vote for him. I think that Oklahomans have wised up a lot, and they know better. Because it's not just Marjorie Taylor Greene who's a menace, as Alex points out here. She is a menace. But we have as many right here in our state, beginning at the top of the Republican ticket and working its way down. These people, some of them, I think, would not know the truth if it came up and bit them on the leg. So CRT is a boogeyman that when you rip away the white sheet, there's not a thing there. It's smoke and mirrors, and that's the best thing that they've got for us. Speaking of which, let's talk about another boogeyman. Oh, this is a big goblin. The Republicans were so concerned that women would turn out to vote and that men would support them in that to protect their right to make healthcare choices for themselves. That they knew that was top of mind for so many Americans. What did they do? And I have to give them credit here. They did it very well. They changed the conversation to the economy. And they have tied a stone around President Biden's neck, and they've tried to drown him with talk of the economy. Let's be clear. The economy does not rise nor fall on the shoulders of one person. We have inflation and economic turmoil throughout the world. That's not President Biden's fault. And it's certainly not the fault of our candidates running here in Oklahoma and those that we're hoping to send to Washington from Oklahoma. No, they have created this thing called, the economy. It's going to be terrible and there will be cuts. Yeah, there will be cuts. According to them, one of the first things they'll cut is Social Security and Medicare. And I'm not scaring you to the polls. I'm simply telling you what they have told us, and I believe them. And I hope that you do too. When it comes to the economy, we've seen worse economies than this. And people are like, gas prices. Let's talk about gas prices. I am in favor of everyone making a living. I'm not in favor of everyone making a killing, though, on the backs of other people. Oil prices for crude oil are roughly the same they were 3 years ago when gas prices were under $2 a gallon. Why are they so much higher now? All you have to do is look at the top 5 big oil companies in this country, and you will see that they all posted major increases. Historically large profits in the last quarter alone. Oh, but it's not limited to the last quarter. Some of them made almost $1 billion a day in profit. Now, how is that the president's fault? How is that our candidate for governor, Joy Hoffmeister, how is that her fault? And yet they're trying to tie her to that. One of Stitt's ad campaign that he's got running out there now is trying to tie Joy Hoffmeister, our current superintendent of public instruction, to the president and to high gas prices. Hold on there, buddy. That's not going to fly. You all have created this talk about what a horrible economy it is, and yet every one of Oklahoma's congressional delegation, every single one, voted against capping gas prices. Which brings us to a really good point. And this is what they didn't want us to see when we peeked under the sheet on the economy. What is your plan, GOP? Ask them, and you won't hear a word because they don't have a plan. All they're doing is blasting people who have zero culpability in prices and trying to make them the bad guy. Nope, the real boogeyman here is the GOP. How is it possibly the fault of the president or the Democratic candidate running for the United States Senate from Oklahoma? How is it their fault that we had an avian flu outbreak this year, raising the cost of chickens and eggs? How is it their fault that we had record drought this year and many ranchers had no choice but to get rid of their cattle, raising beef prices? You see, it's moving the deck. And you cannot play this shell game forever without being caught for exactly who you are and exactly what you're doing. And, you know, the economy is probably the thing that most of us understand the least. I can tell you I had a macro and a microeconomics course when I was at OU, and to this day, I'm still not sure which end is up. It takes a lot to understand the economy. I do the best I can with my reading, but that does not make me an economist. What it makes me is a person who's concerned about things today, but also concerned about our future. Why is it that all of these boogeymen are showing up right here, right now, to deal with something immediately, whether it's a real crisis or not? Speaking of crisis, another boogeyman, the crisis at the border. Let me tell you something. That crisis began in earnest under the last president. Do you remember seeing the photographs of babies being ripped out of their mother's arms, separated for months, years at a time? That's a crisis. That's a humanitarian crisis. And it goes much, much beyond undocumented people coming into the United States. And, you know, since we've had this crackdown on legal immigration, what's suffering? Well, we have fewer students from abroad in our engineering classes. We have fewer physicians in hospitals who are well qualified to take care of sick people. The list goes on. But again, the economy cannot be contained in one small conversation, because it does involve things like lawful integration. They can talk all day long about the border crisis, but what the Republicans have refused to do and continue to refuse to do is look at any way of comprehensively reforming immigration. Why? Because they need this boogeyman. They need to hold up brown people as being bad, and like someone once called them murderers and rapists. What a damn shame. Some of these people make me embarrassed even to live in this country, but I'm not going to let them win. See, I mentioned the word liberal before and how that's such an evil word, but now they've attached it to something else. Remember when politicians were talking about indoctrination of schools, of our school children, of teachers? Well, they can't do that anymore because that's exactly what they're trying to do. So now they have to call it liberal indoctrination. The candidate running for superintendent of education, Ryan Walters, on the GOP side, I don't believe he's ever had a thought of his own that wasn't being pulled by the puppet master Stitt. He was on and on and on about our kids cannot be indoctrinated in the schools and I won't have it. But let me tell you what he's doing. He has made a pledge, friends, that he will require every public school teacher in Oklahoma to take a patriotic history class from Hillsdale College. If Hillsdale sounds vaguely familiar, it's a very small, ultra right-wing school. Never met a hardcore right-wing fanatic Republican that they didn't like. And that's what he wants to use as the standard for our Oklahoma teachers. If he really cared, he wouldn't be throwing boogeymen out there. He would be talking about this so-called plan to pay our best teachers $100,000 a year. We keep hearing that. But when you break down those numbers, that's not a boogeyman, that's a straw man, friends, because it would mean that most school districts would not have more than one, if that, teacher qualified to make $100,000 a year. We have to be careful of what we see and even more careful of what we hear. January 6th, it happened. You saw it, and I saw it. We saw the aftermath, and we're even now seeing new video that occurred that day of how frightened people were and who the real patriots were. Not people like Marky Wayne Mullen, who was hiding behind a chair when the chamber was stormed. Oh, he ginned them up all right, but then his finest hour was cowering, as he's done for much of his time in Congress. But now they're calling it, it was a demonstration. It wasn't even a riot. Friends, why are so many people being put in jail now, going to prison for their work in this riot? It's because it was a riot. It was an attempted coup. It was a threat to our democracy. And they're claiming it all to be the hands of Democrats and liberals. And by God, if they get reelected or if they take over the House and Senate, they will immediately get rid of the findings of the January 6th committee and let it go. That's something we cannot afford. As I said earlier, I'm not trying to frighten you to vote. If you watch this program regularly, I know that we have at least similar ideas. We may not be always on the same page, but I think that you and I both want the same things. We want a better Oklahoma today, a safer place with good quality public education. We want health care for everybody, affordable quality health care for everyone in our state. We want some economic opportunities, not to just stay where we are, going paycheck to paycheck, but literally able to dream a little and then begin to achieve those dreams. That is what democracy is about. This experiment that we've been carrying on since 1776. I hope this isn't the year that the experiment is declared a failure. The only way that we can make sure that things are better in Oklahoma is the way we vote, the way we encourage others to vote. Everyone will tell you, oh, this is the most important election in our lifetime. It seems like we hear that all too often, and I'm kind of sad that that's become such a commonplace saying that people don't really take it seriously when it is. but this is an incredibly important election. Our public education system in Oklahoma is on the ballot. A woman's ability to make her own healthcare choices is on the ballot. The ability for us to take care of ourselves, our family, one another, and dare to dream. Yeah, that's on the ballot too. Not one of us could afford not to vote. Not one of us can afford not to encourage everyone we know and tell them what we've talked about tonight, that these boogeymen that they keep trotting out are nothing but vapors that disappear as quickly as Halloween night. Sadly, even after tonight, the witches and the goblins will continue to invade your home via political advertising. But notice the difference. With our candidates, when Democrats come into your home, they give you reasons to vote for them. The other side, not so much. You won't hear the GOP talking about why you should vote for them, but rather they're just telling you why to vote against Democrats. It's never a good thing when you vote against something with no better alternative in place. Friends, this has been a heavy show tonight, and I appreciate you listening and thinking about what we're saying. The time is almost here. We are 8 days away from this election. Early voting starts Wednesday. You can vote Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday all day at your county election board, or you can vote Saturday until 2 o'clock at your county election board. You can also, of course, vote in person on Tuesday at your polling place, your precinct. The main thing is that you vote, and you vote your entire ballot. Because it's not enough if we elect Joy Hoffmeister as governor. She's going to need help. We need Melinda Alzay-Fard as lieutenant governor. We need people who understand oil and gas and water to serve on the Corporation Commission. That's why we need Warigia Bowman. We need Gina Nelson driving our public education system, not giving it away to billionaires, all in the form of handing out school vouchers. But even more than the statewide officers, Charles DeCoon running for state treasurer, brilliant guy, someone that we've had on this broadcast. And also we've got Jack, who's running for labor commissioner. It's a great, wonderful slate, in addition to Kendra Horn and Madison Horn running for U.S. Senate. And every one of our congressional seats is up for grabs. We can make a difference. We can surprise not just the people in Oklahoma, but if you noticed, MSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, they're not paying attention to us here. But I believe if we all do the right thing after next week, they will have to pay attention. Friends, keep knocking those masks off the boogeyman. Keep stripping the sheets off. And I'm using that word intentionally because too many of them look like KKK messages wrapped in a nice bow. But keep telling the truth. Show people why they have reason to believe, reason to hope for things to be better in this place we call home. Oklahoma, you're not doing fine right now, but you can be. You can be fine once again. We have people of all colors, all faiths, all backgrounds working together to make things better for us, our children, and for generations to come. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I never, ever take your time for granted. I'm always appreciative of the time that you spend with me. I thank you for allowing me into your home or office tonight. Whenever you see this, I hope that you will please share it in social media because we have 1 week to make our voices heard so that all of our voices count in the ballot box. Thank you again. On behalf of all of us here at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for tuning into the Hamilton Report. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next Monday at 6:30. Good night.